Welcome back to Perkins Pipes. Got the warrior cap on today, and we've got the centurion pipe out. So it must be that we're going to talk about warriors in some fashion. So let's see what that's all about. Let's get this guy lit, and we'll get to talking. This is a viewer response video, and some very nice responses to a video I did recently about books I'd written for my children. And I asked in that video, I said, there's other books of mine that you'd like to hear about. I kind of introduced most of the books I'd written for my children. I said, if there's any books you'd like to hear more about, leave me a comment. Well, several of you did. So, had a comment from Jack, who asked to hear about my version of Beowulf that I wrote my son. So Jack, thank you very much for that comment. We appreciate that. We're going to talk about the Beowulf today. Then both South Alabama Piper asked for the guard at the tomb. So thank you, South Alabama Piper, for that, as did Suddy, along with several others that Suddy mentioned. He also wanted to hear about the guard at the tomb. So thank you, Suddy, for that comment as well. Had some other people make some comments, I think, so we'll get to all those over time that people have asked for. So I don't know if you remember Beowulf from high school. A lot of people had to read it in high school. Certainly the version that I read in high school. In fact, it's this particular book right here. It's the translation by Burton Raffle, done in 1963. And this was a standard Beowulf for years. And it says on the back here, it says Beowulf is the earliest extant poem in modern European language. This is written in Old English. So it goes way back there. There are some Christian elements to it, but also a lot of what we call pagan elements as well. So this is really back to the period. It's kind of a borderland between kind of the pagan world and the Christian. And really, we've got J.R.R. Tolkien to thank for the fact that this is really a well-known poem. In the 30s, Tolkien, of course, Tolkien's the Lord of the Rings guy, right? And Tolkien wrote some essay about Beowulf. I've forgotten the title, but it was written in the 1930s. And it really brought Beowulf out of obscurity and into more modern awareness. And then came along Seamus Heaney's edition, which I absolutely love. I've read it. I've listened to the recording of it. I can't remember if Seamus Heaney does the recording himself or not. But Heaney is Heaney's an Irish poet, and this is the cover of it. And there's so much I like about the Heaney version. Heaney's came out in the year 2000. And I like it because it has the Old English on the facing page, along with Heaney's translation on the right-hand side, the Old English on the left. So you've got the bilingual edition there. And right after this came out, I'll never forget, one of my students, high school students I had in Latin at the time, asked me if I had read Haney's then new translation of Beowulf, and I said no, I hadn't. A young man named Isaac, and he said, well, I will bring it in when my dad has finished reading it. And I've told this story countless times over the years. That young man had no idea what he was saying. When he made the comment, I'll bring it in when my dad is finished reading it. And his dad wasn't a literature professor. His dad was a doctor. But obviously reading was a part of their family. And so it was so neat that here's a young man who knew that his father would read fiction. So if you know the story of Beowulf, it involves a warrior, a Guite warrior. The warriors were in this version. We don't know who wrote Beowulf. Beowulf is anonymous. But Beowulf, in the poem, the warriors are called thanes, Thane. So Beowulf, Beowulf gets called with his fellow thanes to this kingdom ruled by Hrothgar. And Hrothgar had built a mead hall. It's a place for his thanes, people to congregate and enjoy, celebrate, kind of a community hall. Well, every night this monster named Grendel would come out and would terrorize the hall and kill everybody, and so it became useless. And nobody could defeat this monster. So Beowulf hears about it, sails over, and he goes to war with Grendel, single-handedly defeats the beast, then defeats the beast's mother. Grendel's mother is a fearsome creature as well. Gets much glory and gold, ends up going back home, becomes king of his own people, the Geats, grows old, and then there's a part at the end of the poem where he does battle one last time against a monstrous dragon with a gold hoard. That's a great story, and I love it. I thought it was great for my son on his 8th birthday. And the dedication, I said, may you, like Beowulf, always rely on God's strength. So I decided that I would rewrite the Beowulf story in ballad stanza. Ballad stanza is such a great rollicking format to poetry. And to me, it just seemed ideally suited to the Beowulf story. So I'm going to read you just a little bit of a couple pieces of this, and then I'll share the other book with you. Long, long ago, great Hrothgar ruled with Lauththo by his side. In Herod Hall, a mighty place, the Danish people's pride. But each night when the sun had sunk and stars had claimed its place, a monster stole out of the dark to terrify that race. His name was Grendel, and he mauled each thane who tried to stand, and ripped their bodies, throwing round each head and heart in hand. No thane in armor with his sword could match the monster's might, and Hrothgar's kingdom lived in fear when each day turned to night. The word soon spread to kill this troll would be a worthy feat. Though many tried, they yet all died, but Beowulf the Geat. So that's how I started the poem. And he sails across the sea to Denmark, where Hrothgar is the king. And he decides he's going to spend the night in this hall that is named Heorot, Heorot. And so Beowulf and his thanes, his warriors, spend the night there. Well, didn't take long before Grendel the monster arrived. Their wait was short, for soon they heard a howling monstrous cry that shook the hall, and they now feared that some of them might die. And suddenly the hall's stout door slammed back upon its hinge. The fearsome creature they beheld made every brave thane cringe. Fierce Grendel, with a gruesome shriek, lunged at a mighty Guite, and roughly ripping limb from limb, stretched wide his jaws to eat. Proud Beowulf leapt up and flew, fierce at the foul troll's hide. The cane spawn fought with wicked force to cast the Guite aside. Now, a quick word there, the cane spawn. One of the things about the Beowulf poet is he used these compound phrases to describe things. So the spawn of Cain, you think about Cain slaying his brother Abel in the Old Testament, and so all the evil coming from Cain. So referring to him as Cain spawn, and certainly in the style of the Beowulf bard, with that hyphenated phrase. So let me back that up. The cane spawn fought with wicked force to cast the Guite aside, yet Edgethow's thun clung to his foe and wrenched his flesh apart. The horrid howl that Grendel heaved shook Herit to the heart. And I want to say a word about that. The horrid howl that Grendel heaved shook Herit to the heart. You notice all the H sounds there. That alliteration is also a part of the Beowulf bard. He used a lot of alliteration in his poem, so I tried to duplicate that when I could. With one great pull, brave Beowulf tore off grim Grendel's arm, and knowing he had done the troll enough for deadly harm, he waved the limb high in the air as Grendel wailed in pain, and fled the hall for darkness, which he never left again. So it goes on from there in that sort of rollicking, rolling ballad stanza, which, like I say, I just thought was a perfect format to tell the Beowulf story. And when my son was 8 years old, he really ate that up. Thought that was good stuff. Now, the other one that people asked for was the guard at the tomb. And I had a friend who taught elementary school art, a woman named Kate Miley. She drew the art for us here, did a nice job and sort of making it look a little childlike, certainly not childish, but childlike, which is appropriate for a novel for a young man on his 9th birthday. So Austin, my son, was 9, and I said, may you always hold on to the truth as you serve the one who is the truth. As you serve the one who is the way, the truth, and the life. So this is the story of the two guards at the tomb of Christ. Particularly, it focuses on one of them. And we don't know anything about these guys. We don't know their names. We don't know anything. But over the years, I've done some historical reenactment. And in fact, I'll bring up a picture here of me doing some historical reenactment. This is, I have done 3 different personas, which you can find out more about on my website, romanpersonas.com. And one of them, the picture you see here, is of a centurion I do. Now, he's a real character. He's a real centurion. His name is Gaius Crestinus. He was in Julius Caesar's 10th Legion. Fought with Caesar in Gaul in the 1st century BC, and then also fought with Caesar in the Roman Civil War against Caesar's personal enemy, Pompey the Great. Well, this character that one of the other characters I do, I completely made everything up. I really don't know much about these guys, or really anything about these guys. So I was able to create this character of one of the main guards at the tomb, and I named him Publius Sempronius, very Roman names there. I gave him the cognomen or the nicknomen Tuditanus, which is the hammer. Seemed like a good name for a soldier, Publius Sempronius Tuditanus. And in my persona that I present to schools and churches. I present him as part of the the 6th Legion Ferrata, or the Iron Legion. And the Iron Legion, Legion number 6, was the Roman legion that was stationed in Judea in the 1st century AD, so at the time of Christ. So that part is historically accurate. But then, who was this guy? What was his life like before and then when he stood guard at that tomb? So, I created a character, and I created the character a couple of years before I wrote the book. No, I take it back. Oh no, I take it back. Our son was 9 for this one. It was actually this year that I had created that character. And I'm just read you a little bit here. Gosh, loose a little bit of ash there. It got a little loose. So it starts off like this. We'll read the beginning of it to you. The young boy's feet pounded the ground. The only sounds he could hear as he ran were the panting of his own breath and the sound of leather skidding on loose rocks as his sandals carried him over the uneven ground. At last he reached the water's edge, and without a moment's pause, he flung himself into the lake. Instantly, the hot, sun-baked landscape turned into a swirling world of cool darkness. His eyes had barely adjusted to the beams of light piercing the water like Apollo's arrows when his burning lungs forced him back to the surface. He pushed the wet hair out of his eyes and floated on his back, staring up into the brilliant, blazing blue sky. Throwing his arms over his head, he pulled a few powerful backstrokes, then rolled over and swam effortlessly toward the shore. As he climbed out of the lake, Publius slipped off his sandals and began to walk slowly back the way he had come. On such a warm, sunny day, his tunic would dry easily before getting home, and the ground felt good under his bare feet. Besides, walking barefoot forced him to be more careful, and this gave his mind something to think about other than how he would explain to his father what had happened earlier that day. Soon he could see his family's small villa at the top of the hill. His father was just coming around the corner, shooing chickens away before entering the house. Publius stopped to put on his sandals. His shoulders stretched as he bent over to lace them around his legs, and a sharp pain lanced through his neck, reminding him of his embarrassing news. Publius stood up straight and shrugged off the pain. He was not about to add the role of crybaby to his shame. He made his way up the lane and enjoyed the warm breeze through the umbrella pines that lined each side. His mother appeared at the doorway and smiled as he walked up. "There you are, Publius," she said, and reached out to hug him. Publius flinched back as her embrace brought pain once again to his shoulders. A worried look flashed across his mother's face. "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" "It's nothing, Mater," he replied, pushing past her into the house. "What's for dinner?" So it kind of gets you set up that there's this boy, something has obviously happened. He doesn't want to tell his dad about it, and it's something that's caused him some pain. It turns out he's gotten in trouble at school, and the teacher has given him some pretty severe whacks across the shoulders. Well, he and his friend Lucius decide at some point that they are no longer suited for school. They want to join the Roman army, and so they do. Get lots of passages about their training in the Roman army, and they eventually get assigned to the 6th Legion Ferrata, the Iron Legion. They sail across from Italy over to Judea. Along the way, there's a powerful storm at sea, as I remember. It's been many years now. But I believe Publius actually saves somebody who has fallen off the ship during the storm. They get to Judea, and they have numerous encounters with the locals. Always fighting. Right here, it says, "Pro Gloria Romae," for the glory of Rome. And that's all that really matters to him. And he, like many of the soldiers, he gambles, he throws knuckle bones, and, tries to make some money that way. And then he gets assigned to be the guard at the tomb of Christ, along with his friend Lucius. Of course, we know what happens. All right, Christ rises from the dead, and even Scripture tells us that the next morning the guards were found as if they were dead. They were just stunned by what they had seen. We know there was a plot for them to lie, to say that somebody had come along and stolen the body. Well, by that point, Lucius has had quite the experience, or Publius has had quite the experience, and he decides he's not going to keep the money that he is bribed with. Lucius does, his friend does. But Publius doesn't want any part of it, because part of the deal of keeping the money is to be silent. And Publius decides that he can't do that. And so he ends up leaving the army. And he's going to have to tell people. He's going to tell people about this Jesus whom he has seen. So it's quite the transformative experience for him. So anyhow, I'll look at a couple of the books that I've written. Thank you again to Jack, South Alabama Piper, and to Suddy for those. We're certainly going to look at some others another day. So let me ask you this. What stories do you remember from childhood that you really enjoyed? Stories that you had read to you? Stories that you read yourself, especially back in the days, maybe late elementary school, middle school, and even high school. As always, we end the show with Malcolm Guite's line, "I do these little things in order at last to do nothing," which is what I'm going to do with this pipe. We certainly hope you're enjoying these episodes. If you are, please click subscribe. We'd love for you to do that. And as I've translated Malcolm Guite's line into Latin, Parva agam, ut tandem, nihil agam. Have a wonderful day.
There was a man who walked the earth